There is a moment I will never forget, and I don't think I ever should. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in my clinic in Chicago. The waiting room was full, the way it always is, and I was running slightly behind, the way I almost always am. A woman named Margaret was sitting in room 3. She was 64 years old, retired, sharp as anyone I had ever met. The kind of patient who comes in with her own notes, who asks follow-up questions, who doesn't just nod and leave. She had driven herself to the appointment. She would tell me later that she had almost canceled because she convinced herself that what she was experiencing was just part of getting older. Just tiredness. Just screens. Just life. What Margaret came in with was something she described as a veil. Not pain. Not sudden vision loss. Just a faint, persistent veil over the center of what she saw, especially when she was reading or watching television late at night. She had noticed it for about a year. She had said nothing to anyone. When I completed her examination that afternoon, I sat back in my chair with a weight I know too well. Margaret had early-stage dry age-related macular degeneration. The imaging showed drusen deposits beneath her retinal pigment epithelium, small yellowish accumulations that are the biological fingerprints of a degenerative process that had been building quietly for years, possibly decades, while she went about her life without a single moment of warning ping. She looked at me across the room and said, very quietly, "Is this fixable?" And I had to give her the honest answer that I hate giving, but that I owe every patient. The cells already lost cannot be recovered. Vision taken by macular degeneration does not return. But what we can do, and what we must do immediately, is slow what is coming and protect what remains. And the window to act is almost always shorter than people believe. That afternoon changed the direction of my practice. Not because Margaret's case was medically unusual. It wasn't. Age-related macular degeneration is the leading cause of legal blindness among adults over 50 in the United States, affecting more than 11 million Americans, with numbers projected to double by 2050 according to data from the National Eye Institute. What changed me was not the diagnosis. It was the conversation that followed when I asked Margaret about her diet, her evening habits, what she typically ate in the hours before going to bed. She paused. She thought. She said, "Honestly, doctor, usually nothing much. Maybe crackers. Sometimes a bowl of cereal. I'm usually too tired to think about food by that point in the day." And there it was. Not in her medical history. Not in her genetics. In that one sentence. In 1,000 nights of going to sleep without giving her eyes what they needed to repair themselves. I need you to understand something that most people are never told, because it doesn't come up in a routine checkup unless you have a physician who is specifically looking for it. Your eyes are the most metabolically demanding tissue in the human body. Your retina consumes more oxygen per gram of tissue than your heart, more than your brain, more than any other organ. That extraordinary level of metabolic activity means that your retinal cells produce an extraordinary volume of oxidative byproducts throughout the day. Every photon of light that enters your eye, every hour under fluorescent office lighting, every minute scrolling through your phone, every evening in front of a high-brightness television screen, generates what we call reactive oxygen species inside the delicate cells of your retina. During the day, your body is too busy to fully process that damage. It is maintaining your blood pressure, regulating your hormones, keeping you upright and functional. It is only during sleep, particularly during the deep, slow-wave phases that dominate the first several hours of the night, that your body turns its repair capacity inward. It is during those hours that your retinal pigment epithelium, the single-cell layer that lies behind your photoreceptors and that is essential to their survival, performs its critical maintenance functions. It phagocytoses the outer segments of damaged rod and cone cells, recycling them into functional tissue. It clears accumulated debris. It regenerates the photopigments that allow you to see. But this process is not automatic in the sense of being guaranteed. It requires specific raw materials, specific antioxidants, specific nutrients. And if those nutrients are not present in your bloodstream when your head hits the pillow, the repair cycle is incomplete. Your retina wakes up the next morning slightly more worn than the night before. Not perceptibly, not in any way you would notice. But over months, over years, over decades of nights like that, the cumulative deficit becomes a diagnosis, becomes a veil, becomes Margaret sitting in my office wondering if her vision is fixable. If you want to understand how to protect yourself from the kind of silent, progressive vision loss that brings people to my clinic when it is often too late for the best outcomes, I have put together a comprehensive guide in the first link in the description below. It goes much deeper than I can in the time we have here, and I genuinely urge you to look at it today, not someday. Now let me tell you what the science actually says about what your eyes need during those critical nighttime hours, because this is where the story of what you eat before bed becomes something more than a wellness tip. It becomes a clinical decision. The first nutrient your retina depends on is vitamin A, and its name is not coincidental. Retinal, its active form, is the structural backbone of rhodopsin, the photosensitive pigment packed inside your rod cells, which are the photoreceptors responsible for vision in low-light conditions. When you walk into a dim restaurant from a bright parking lot, when you wake up at night and try to navigate your room, when you look up at a night sky, that entire experience depends on how efficiently your rhodopsin is being regenerated. Vitamin A is the key molecule in that regeneration cycle. When it is insufficient, the earliest sign is almost always the same: difficulty adapting to darkness. The lag gets longer. The night feels blacker. People attribute it to aging and say nothing. The second group of nutrients are the macular carotenoids, lutein and zeaxanthin. These two compounds are the only carotenoids that accumulate specifically within the macula, the small central region of the retina that is responsible for the sharpest, highest resolution vision you have. The ability to read, to recognize faces, to see detail in any direction you look directly. Lutein and zeaxanthin form what researchers call the macular pigment, a natural internal filter that absorbs high-energy blue light and neutralizes free radicals before they can damage the macular cells. The density of that pigment is directly measurable, and it is directly modifiable through diet. The evidence on this point is not speculative. The Age-Related Eye Disease Study 2, known as ARDS-2, funded by the National Institutes of Health and conducted across multiple clinical centers in the United States, enrolled more than 4,000 patients at risk of advanced macular degeneration and examined the long-term effects of lutein and zeaxanthin supplementation. A 10-year follow-up analysis published in JAMA Ophthalmology confirmed that lutein and zeaxanthin reduced progression to late-stage macular degeneration more effectively than the previously used beta-carotene formulation, while also carrying a significantly safer risk profile. These are not fringe findings. They come from the most rigorous level of clinical evidence available and have reshaped the standard of care in ophthalmology. The third pillar is the class of compounds called anthocyanins, and this is where the story of what you eat specifically before sleeping becomes extraordinarily precise. Anthocyanins are polyphenolic pigments found in the deepest colored fruits in nature. They are responsible for the intense blue, purple, and dark red hues that signal high biological activity in a fruit. They are among the most potent antioxidants identified in the human food supply, and they possess a remarkable property that sets them apart from many other antioxidants. They can cross the blood-retinal barrier and act directly within the tissues of the eye itself. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry demonstrated that specific anthocyanins found in blueberries, including malvidin and delphinidin, directly reduced oxidative stress in human retinal pigment epithelial cells, increased cell viability under conditions of oxidative challenge, inhibited vascular endothelial growth factor expression associated with pathological neovascularization, and activated protective cellular signaling pathways. This was not observed in a test tube abstraction. These were human retinal cells under conditions designed to replicate the oxidative environment that accumulates over years of light exposure and metabolic stress. And then, in 2024, came a study from Harvard Medical School that I consider one of the most important pieces of clinical nutrition research in eye health published in the last decade. Investigators at Brigham and Women's Hospital and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, led by Dr. Howard Sesso and colleagues, analyzed data from over 36,000 women enrolled in the Women's Health Study and followed them for an average of 11 years. Women who consumed at least 2 servings per week of blueberries had a 64% lower risk of developing age-related macular degeneration compared to those who ate none. Let me say that again, because I want you to understand the magnitude of what that means clinically. A 64% reduction in AMD risk from food. from something you choose to put in your body before going to sleep. That number should not be a footnote in a nutrition article. That number should be on every patient information sheet in every ophthalmology clinic in this country. And if any of what I am describing sounds familiar to you right now, if you have noticed that your vision isn't quite as sharp at night as it used to be, if your eyes feel chronically fatigued by evening, if you find yourself holding your phone slightly farther away than you did a year ago, please do not wait until the symptom becomes undeniable. The time to act on this information is before you have a reason to be scared. If this is already happening to you or to someone you love, I want you to know that there is specific, actionable information available to you right now. I have prepared a detailed guide in the first link in the description below. It covers what I discuss with my own high-risk patients. Please access it today, not when things get worse. Now let me tell you what I told Margaret, and what I tell every patient who is still in the window where prevention matters most. The fruit I recommend for nighttime consumption as the cornerstone of ocular nutrition is the blueberry. I say this not because it is trendy. I say it because it has the most concentrated, most well-studied, most clinically supported profile of anthocyanins among fruits that are widely and affordably available across the United States year-round, both fresh and frozen. Blueberry anthocyanins, including malvidin-3, glucoside, and malvidin-3, galactoside, have been shown to reduce harmful reactive oxygen species, increase antioxidant enzyme activity, and significantly inhibit cell death in human retinal pigment epithelial cells under oxidative stress. These are not effects that happen over 20 years of eating well in general. These are mechanisms that are activated with each exposure, each serving, each night that you give your retina what it needs. The reason timing matters, specifically the period 30 to 60 minutes before sleep, is grounded in physiology. Anthocyanins are absorbed relatively rapidly through the intestinal wall following consumption. They enter circulation and reach systemic tissues, including those of the eye, within an hour of ingestion. Consuming them in the late evening means that peak circulating concentrations align with the beginning of slow-wave sleep, which is when the retinal repair mechanisms I described are most active. You are not just eating a fruit. You are scheduling a delivery of protective compounds to arrive precisely when the construction crew is ready to work. The practical protocol I developed following Margaret's case and refined over the years since is uncomplicated. Each evening, approximately 30 to 60 minutes before going to bed, I recommend a portion of about 3 to 4 ounces of fresh or unsweetened frozen blueberries. Frozen is entirely acceptable and in some cases may preserve anthocyanin content even better than fresh fruit that has sat in transit or on a shelf for days. I recommend combining this with half a cup of cantaloupe or mango, which are among the richest sources of beta-carotene available in American grocery stores, providing the raw material your retina uses to regenerate rhodopsin overnight. If leafy greens such as kale or spinach are part of your evening meal, they provide some of the highest concentrations of dietary lutein and zeaxanthin found in any food, and their fat-soluble carotenoids are better absorbed when consumed alongside a small amount of healthy fat, such as olive oil or a handful of walnuts. The dark cherry, which is widely available across much of the United States seasonally and frozen year-round, is another powerful complement. It shares the deep anthocyanin profile of blueberries and adds melatonin, which supports sleep quality and therefore indirectly supports the quality and completeness of the nighttime retinal repair process. Sleep architecture matters. Deep, uninterrupted sleep means more hours in the slow-wave phase where retinal maintenance occurs most efficiently. I followed Margaret for the 2.5 years that followed her diagnosis. Her drusen load did not increase on imaging. Her macular pigment optical density, which we were now measuring at each visit, improved measurably over the first 6 months. She did not recover what was already gone. That is not how biology works, and I will never pretend otherwise with a patient. But she stopped losing ground. She told me at her last appointment before I moved my practice that she had been driving herself to appointments, reading her book at night, watching her granddaughter's soccer games on the weekend. She said the veil had not grown. I am not describing a miracle. I am describing what happens when the body is given what it has always needed but was never given, consistently, and with enough time to make a difference. But I have to be direct with you about something, because this channel exists precisely to give you the kind of straightforward clinical information that gets filtered out of most health conversations. No food, however powerful, replaces a dilated eye examination with a qualified ophthalmologist or optometrist. If you are over 40 and you have not had a comprehensive eye exam in the last 2 years, that is your first action item, not blueberries. Blueberries are a foundation. They are not a substitute for diagnosis. The diseases that steal vision most effectively are the ones that steal it silently, and the only way to catch them before they reach the point Margaret's did is to have eyes that are being professionally monitored. What I am giving you today is what I give my patients when I want them to be active participants in protecting their own vision between appointments. A specific, science-backed, practical habit that costs less than a cup of coffee each day, takes less than 2 minutes to prepare, and sets in motion a biological process that works every single night while you sleep. Your eyes do not get a day off. They are exposed to oxidative stress every waking hour. The least you can do is give them the tools they need to recover while you rest. We live in a country where more than 12 million Americans over 40 are living with significant vision impairment, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and where more than half of all cases of blindness and vision impairment could be prevented or treated with timely intervention, according to the American Academy of Ophthalmology. Those are not statistics about other people. Those are statistics that describe the trajectory of people who, right now, are doing exactly what Margaret was doing before she sat down in my examination chair, attributing the early signals to tiredness, to screens, to getting older. You are watching this because something made you stop. Maybe you have been noticing things. Maybe someone you love is. Either way, I want you to leave this video with a decision, not just information. A decision to start tonight. To put a bag of blueberries in your refrigerator or your freezer. To cut half a cup of mango or cantaloupe and set it beside them. To sit down 30 minutes before you turn off the light and give your eyes 30 grams of anthocyanins and carotenoids that will get to work the moment you close your eyes. Vision is not guaranteed. It is maintained. It is earned, night after night, by choices that seem small in the moment and enormous over a lifetime. Margaret understood that too late to save what she had already lost. You still have the opportunity to understand it at exactly the right time. If this content reached you in a way that matters, I want to ask you directly, subscribe to this channel. Not as a favor to me, but because what I do here is build a library of preventive clinical knowledge that most people never receive from their doctor, not because their doctor doesn't know it, but because a 10-minute appointment doesn't leave room for it. Here, there is room. Here, we go deep. We follow the research. We translate what is published in journals most people never read into language that leads to real decisions in real lives. Click subscribe. Turn on notifications. Share this with someone whose vision matters to you. Because the next video continues this conversation, and what comes next is something I promise you have not heard in the way I intend to tell it. Your eyes have been working for you every single day of your life. Tonight is a good night to start working for them.